All right. Thank you all for coming. It's a packed room tonight. I call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the flag salute. Jake, will you lead us?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
We do not.
All right. Can I get a motion for the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Do we have public comment tonight?
We do not.
Good check. All right. Yeah.
Okay.
That will take us to the superintendent's report.
I didn't even have time to finish my lifesaver here, so. Welcome. All right. Tonight, it's just me. You just get me tonight. So we have a couple different topics. And so I'm going to do like I did a few sessions ago where I had like pause breaks after each topic because they're kind of all over the map tonight. So there will be some pause points in here so you can ask questions before we go on to the next topic. So at our last board meeting earlier in October, I shared some updates around the enrollment picture at the state level. Tonight, I'm sharing some big picture items around testing and some data at a big picture level. So high school graduates continue to out-earn non-graduates over their lifetime. Of course, we want all kids to graduate from high school. It really, though, is about people being able to take care of themselves and take care of their families and live in a way that is comfortable for them. And so it is more than just that we want kids to learn algebra and how to read a novel. Historically, education has pushed out students with disabilities, migrant families, families in poverty, and more. And so what is, I think, striking when you look at the graph on the lower left and you go all the way back to 1940, I had to get a little closer there to read the numbers. Back at that point, there was a lot of people who didn't go to high school, didn't finish high school. And so now we serve all kids and we retain them all in high school. And to see the growth in graduation really over the last 75 years is pretty amazing, pretty impressive across the country. So I know we hear a lot of stories about public education, but high school graduation is a place where we really are doing a great job across our state, across our country, and particularly here in Ridgefield, our graduation rate is above even our state graduation rate. And that is a measure of all the students that are with us. And so something that we should feel proud of. Additionally, there's a lot more requirements than there used to be. We require now a more well-rounded student to earn that diploma. They're required to take foreign or world languages, arts classes, career and technical education coursework. They're required to have a high school and beyond plan. To have 3 years of science, including lab sciences, 3 years of mathematics, and 4 years of English language arts, among other things. So we do know, of course, that college isn't for everyone, but we do want kids to graduate with a diploma that means something. The graph on the right, I know it's a little hard to see with the picture-in-picture there, but thank you, Miss Danny. But this is another, I think, spot of bright news, which is percentage of people who are completing a 4-year college degree, not just going to school for 4 years. Some of us may have taken 10 years to get our bachelor's, and that's okay. But a 4-year degree, so you can see back in 1940, 4.6% of people at age 25 had a bachelor's degree or higher. And in 2024, we were up at 38.7. So again, that's a big picture, long-term view of public education, but we're seeing more folks finish, and that trend line continues to increase. Within high school, we have a number of ways that we can also consider how our students doing, and one of those is through advanced placement or AP exams. Washington State is a front runner in taking AP exams, offering AP coursework, and we have a number of AP classes that we offer at Ridgefield High School, and I think even a few that we have through Wisdom Ridge. 77% of Washington students taking an AP exam earn college credit. And you can see here, it's on the right-hand side, percentage of exams 3+. So AP exams are scored on a 1 to 5 scale. You have to have a minimum of a 3 in order to be eligible for college credit. It varies from university to university, but in most cases, a 3 or higher is going to get you at least one course that's already taken care of, and you get that credited towards your degree. You can see here too, Washington, here's all the exams taken. So we have a lot of kids taking exams, which is also important, and then a good chunk of them that are getting those scores of 3+. SAT is something folks are still familiar with. SAT is a college entrance exam. We've seen some movement away with higher education from using SAT or ACT scores for admissions, but there are still a lot of students in our state that take the SAT. And you can see here from last year's graduating class across our state, we had about a third of our students, our high school grads, who did complete the SAT. So that participation rate there, 34.8%, that you can see in the table and in the pie graph. That is a higher rate compared to other states of students taking the exam, and our students in Washington also score well above national averages. So you can see in the table on the bottom with the kind of yellow gold header there that Washington State, 51% of our students who took the SAT met both benchmarks, and that's for reading, writing, language arts, and for mathematics. And so we're a good 12% above the US averages. And then you can see the writing scores. Our kids do really well with that, meeting the math benchmark, 52%, and then only a quarter of kids not meeting at least one of those. This gives you the averages, so the mean, which is in this case means the average. So like national averages, math scores continue to lag. So the yellow line on the top is the reading and writing. The kind of teal blue green line on the bottom is the math. So you can see with the reading writing, we had some trending up. If you take a look at the years, 21, 22, and then it falls off 22, 23, 23, 24, but now we're climbing back up again. So we're above kind of that initial pandemic year. So that's good to see with the reading and writing. With math, it's basically stagnant. So we had a little bit of an uptick and then a drop again. And so it's been pretty flat going across as you look at that. The other exam that folks may be familiar with is the ACT college entrance exam. There are very few universities in the Northwest region that require the ACT, very few in the country that require that. So we only have about 5% of our students that take the ACT exam, and if they are doing that, they're doing it specifically to apply for a college or a university of their choice. So it's not, I didn't bring a graph for you on that because it's not indicative of our public education in the state as a whole. And given that so few students are taking it, and they are typically university-bound students, our kids do really well. But again, that's not a good representative sample of how we're doing. So that was just a quick little foray into some of our state data, and I just think important for us to be aware of how not just we're doing in Ridgefield, but how we're doing within the state of Washington in terms of our education system. So I'll pause for a moment if there's any discussion or questions.
I have some questions. With the AP exam, kids can take that exam, correct, without taking an AP course. Is that right?
Mm-hmm, they can.
And does it cost them money?
All AP exams cost money,
Okay.
yes. So if it's a course that we're offering, I believe we pay, I'm looking at my people, I believe we pay for the exam for them. If we weren't offering the course, I don't know that we would be paying for the exam. It's those exams are no joke. So it's pretty unlikely that a student would pass an AP exam without having taken some sort of preparatory course.
Okay. I think that's about all I had.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay. All right, strategic planning, we talked a little bit last time. We are gearing up to get started next week. So like test of Jenny's memory. So while Danny's working on getting the screen back up, we are up to, I think, 72 participants. We're going to be in this room right here, so it's going to be up close and personal. Brush your teeth, I guess, and excited to have all kinds of folks. We've got students. We'll have 12 different table groups, 2 table groups of just students. We have staff from each campus, each level. We have parents and guardians, and we have about a dozen community members. So excited to get all those people into the room together. The first session is really going to be talking about our district vision and mission statement, recapping. Not everyone who is going to be here for these sessions was part of the launch session, so we're going to do a little bit of stepping back to refresh on what we did last year, and then moving the work forward. We'll also be learning about how to conduct an empathy interview, and everyone who's here on Tuesday night will be going out to collect some data from folks that they know. And then we'll be bringing that back on November 18th. So I'm just going to continue to update you at the board meetings and update the community on where we're at with that. And then just want to reiterate that we are being really thoughtful about asking for and utilizing the feedback, as I've worked really hard to do since getting here. So we had a lot of data that was collected throughout the year last year. We held 4 launch sessions in the spring with 100 participants. We did have our community survey out. I made a plea 2 weeks ago for more people to take the survey. After 2 weeks being open, we had 126 respondents. So we're going to move forward with that data. And then again, as I mentioned with the empathy interviews, all of our work group members will be looking for additional feedback one-on-one in different settings and bringing that back. So excited to see what additional information we're able to gather. Now it's not going to want to let me click. Ooh, oh, now we're all clicking. Everybody's clicking. Okay. So the survey, I wanted to do a little preview this evening for the board and for folks who aren't able to be part of that work group, but we did launch the strategic planning survey. It was open for a couple of weeks. We publicized it through all of our normal channels. And again, we had 126 respondents. So this gives you an idea of who all responded. About a third were parents, 11% students, which was great to see. Close to 30% teachers and certificated staff, a little under 5% support and classified, couple percent of school administrators, 17.5% that were staff and also have children in our district, and just a few community members that completed that. For those that answered parent guardian, we asked them to select their schools just to see if we had representation from all of our campuses, which we did, which was great to see that. And then again, not just the levels, but taking a look at what school are you most connected to. Lots of RHS love there. So, but pretty equally split among all the schools. So that again, it was great to see connections. People feel connected to each of the different sites. This was a really interesting question to me. How long have you been part of the Ridgefield School District community? Because there is so much pride and tradition in Ridgefield. And we all know that Ridgefield has changed a lot over the last few decades. So we had just 6% of the respondents that said they were generational in this community. We had about 16% that have been here 15 or more years. So you combine that, about 1 in 5 of our survey takers has been here 15 or more years. 2/3 of the respondents have been here 10 years or less, and 1/3, so half of those, have only been here less than 5 years. So we have a really young community in that regard for folks who are engaging with us. We asked how well are we doing as a school district on a scale of 1 to 6, 1 being that we're not meeting these needs, 6 being that we're exceeding the expectations. And we asked folks to rate the district on performance since July of 2024 to the present, so under current leadership. The first one was around student learning and success, helping all students learn, grow, and thrive. So we're really wanting to see the purple and the turquoise on the far right. As always, there's a big chunk of people in the middle, but I did make it a forced choice. So you had to lean either a little bit to the negative or a little bit to the positive. So a huge number of positive there. Healthy and safe, supporting each student's social, emotional, and material well-being looks fairly similar there. High quality teaching and learning, ensuring deep, meaningful learning for all. A lot of people saying like, oh, we're doing okay, right? That's what it feels like to me there. Equity and access, ensuring every student is seen, valued, and included. And you can see this one is looking more like a typical bar graph, so people are more spread out on that one. 4 additional, excellent staff, recruiting, retaining, and growing amazing educators. We had some pretty good, strong feelings about that. Together for students, strong and trusted partnerships. This is another one that's looking like that bell curve. Safe, supportive, and future-ready buildings and technology is probably the lowest overall, which I think is not a surprise given all the conversations we've had over the last 6 months about failing roofs and the like. And then ensuring efficient operations, sustainable resources, and financial responsibility. And again, that's one where it looks like we've got some room for growth. When we have our first session next week for strategic planning, there'll be some additional data just breaking down some of this information, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of what folks are going to see. We also asked people to rank or to rate their top 3 of those 8 characteristics of high performing schools and districts, and so no big surprise, I don't think, to see student learning and success at the top. And so this will be data for that work group to be taking into consideration in terms of what is most important to people that we address, followed by health and safety, high quality teaching and learning, equity access, excellent staff, partnerships, followed by facilities and operations. So while those are areas where we have some growth and some concerns, they're less important overall to the function of our schools as an organization to the community members that took the survey. We also did some just additional feedback on core values. So this is work that came out of the launch sessions last May. And then you'll recall as a board, we talked through these during our retreat in July. So we asked just to find out from folks who wanted to complete the survey, do you strongly support, do not support, or strongly do not support, just so we could see, are we on track with the general feelings in the community? And overall, you're going to see a ton of support and strongly support. So accountability, a large number of people, because this is not percentages, this is number of respondents, strongly support that being a core value of the district. And then you can see authenticity, belonging. We had just a couple of people that said they did not support. Collaboration, there's a really tiny little yellow bar. I think we had one person that said they did not support that value. Same for community, compassion, growth, inclusion. You can see we've got people are a little more on the support and not as much on the strongly support, but still the vast majority saying, yes, I support that core value. Integrity and respect were the top 2 for strongly support. You can see where those blue bars are heading. Kindness is also really high. It was the 4th highest of the 12, and then making a difference there. So again, there'll be some more data around these for the work group next week, but this gives you a snapshot of the feedback on the survey. We also shared the 5 guiding principles. So this is work that we did again in the launch sessions, and we had teams at every session come up with guiding principle statements, and then we utilized AI to theme those out. And I brought you 3 different drafts that we looked at our retreat in July. And then based on your feedback, we narrowed it down to the 5. So these were the drafts of those. And again, just asking folks, do you strongly support this principle? Do you support it? Do you not support it? Or do you strongly not support it? So empowering every learner, we're committed to ensuring every student achieves their full potential, fostering their academic achievement, social emotional well-being, and sense of belonging. Students will become independent, critical thinkers, thriving as engaged citizens in our community and world. And we had over 80% that said, I strongly support. Again, just slivers, very few people that said did not support that as a guiding principle for the new strategic plan. The second one was valuing our people. We cultivate a supportive and collaborative culture for all staff, promoting professional growth, well-being, and our shared commitment to student success. Collectively, we commit to fostering innovation, creativity, and continuous learning. This one's still really strong performance, but not quite as high as the first one. So about 3/4 said I strongly support, and just over 1/4 said I support. Again, super tiny sliver of not supporting that. The third one was collaborating with our community, recognizing the integral role that families play in the success of our students and schools. And I have no idea what that word is under there, but something about communication, inviting diverse perspectives, and creating opportunities for collaborative engagement that celebrate traditions and welcome new ideas. Together, we're mutually accountable to build and maintain strong, trusting relationships in support of our community's children. And you can see this one looks a lot like the other two. The fourth one was celebrating our collective diversity. It's around this equitable investment in all students, ensuring opportunities, access, and achievement for all. So I think always important when we're talking about disparity work that it isn't just about giving access, but ensuring that students are successful. Recognizing diverse achievements and providing necessary support for every student to thrive with dignity, breaking down barriers and fostering an inclusive community. This one is, again, strong support, but the lowest percentage of the 5 in terms of strong support in that level 4 blue. So 2/3 saying I strongly support this and about 1/3 saying I support it. Again, a very small sliver of individuals who said they did not. And the last one really speaks to central services and our district as a whole, and it's leading with integrity, ensuring accountability, clear communication, ensuring our actions reflect our commitment to building trust within our district and community. We responsibly manage our resources for long-term sustainability and consistently demonstrate high standards of fiscal stewardship. Not a single person said they did not agree, and this is actually the highest rated. So I feel like we have a pretty clear imperative as central services and as the district to be living up to this guiding principle. So with that, I'm going to take a moment and pause before we go on to the next topic.
Dr. Rodriguez, for some of the outlier respondents on some of those values and what are we calling the last 5 statements?
Guiding principles.
Guiding principles, thank you. Was there any open-ended response that gave any indication about what parts of those statements were not connecting with their values in any kind of way, or I'm just curious?
Yeah, so we did not do an open-ended for each of those individually. We do have open-ended qualitative feedback overall from participants. So that's a piece that the work group's going to be
Can look at.
going through next week to identify additional ideas.
Thanks.
I will say, I think the most number of people was like 4 out of 125. So it was a very small.
I saw that it was very, very small. I'm just always curious about,
Why?
the why behind
Yeah.
people's thoughts on language, and particularly what words may or may not have resonated for those, granted, small number of folks, but still
Yeah.
people in the survey. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I already did that. We already did that. Okay, before I introduce the next topic, we're going to all take a collective deep breath in and out. Okay, just hold on to your... We're going to talk about Elementary boundaries. People are going to be like, oh, I should have gone to the meeting. Yes, you should have. Okay. Yeah, you have popcorn and everything. So I want to start with the caveat that no decisions have been made. So we're going to all say it together. No decisions have been made. Thank you. A great audience participation tonight. And you're going to see that on several slides because I know someone's going to screenshot something, put it on Facebook, say we made a decision, but you all heard it here. No decisions have been made. So we need to start this conversation. The building's going up. It's amazing. If you haven't driven by, definitely do so. And I have a picture here in a little bit for you. But we've got to get moving on boundaries. And so we've worked with K-Whirl and also like enrollment and IT and pulling all of our kids to kind of start to look at what's going to make sense as we open the new school. Not a surprise to any of us, we have a broad geographic boundary. Not crazy huge like some districts in our state, but it is a fairly wide area, especially when we think kind of north to south. There's a mix of very dense suburban and rural population within our district boundaries. And next fall, as we are all aware, we're going from 2 to 3 schools, so that's necessitating a boundary shift. We're also moving from being K4 to K5 at elementaries. All these little purple blue dots, that is where all of our kids are at. So right now, with our boundaries, all the red dots in the northwest upper left quadrant, those are our Union Ridge kiddos. And then the blue dots that you see all over the map, those are our South Ridge kiddos. The boundaries we redrawn a number of years back, and you can see the geographic landscape of South Ridge is quite varied and quite big. So we have kids who are on buses for a fairly long amount of time, getting where they need to go. You can also see that the Union Ridge, the population is very dense in these. It's a lot of the housing developments that have gone in. So some things that we typically would consider or think about when we do a boundary revision. And sometimes boundary revisions happen for a new building being built, like in our case, sometimes when a building is being shut down, and other times it's just when the housing has shifted within a community to an extent where we no longer have balanced enrollment across campuses or sort of right sizing based on the actual facility space. So we want to take a look at enrollment, of course, and capacity within a building. So for example, Union Ridge has the most capacity. So as we're thinking about boundaries and thinking about where new developments will be, we want to be mindful to consider for the future that probably people are going to move into what is probably going to be the Sunset boundary and the South Ridge boundary more than in what will probably be the Union Ridge boundary. So we need to think about that. And then the flip of that, right, being that it has the most space. It has the most classrooms of the 3 campuses. It's helpful to balance enrollment because when we're thinking about lunch service, kitchen space, how many pairs at recess, all of those things, it is helpful to balance where we can. We also want to take a look at the socioeconomic makeup when we're possible to do that. We have diversity within our community, but less so than many other districts. So I think we could pull kids from pretty much everywhere, and we'll get a range of students at our schools. We also want to make sure that we have high quality resources at all sites. So for example, if we were to draw all less expensive housing, families that do not bring in as much income into a single campus, chances are all of our Title I funding would go there because that is to support students who come from low income households. And then when you do that, then you have a few folks who are at the other school typically who then have no support because of the way that we've divided up and where the funding follows. We also want to think about student and community impact, obviously minimizing student safety risks. So where possible, we don't want kids having to cross major roads, be on buses for 90 minutes. We want to be efficient with our transportation. So If K-World was here, they would say, we want to make sure that however we draw the boundaries, it's not just a street, because then you end up with kids on one side of the street at one school and kids on the other side at a different school, and that means 2 buses have to go down that street, which is not efficient. So we want to minimize bus and car travel time for students wherever possible, keeping neighborhoods, subdivisions, apartment complexes together. That really does support a sense of community within the neighborhood or within the development. Those are the kids that play together, often see each other at the bus stop. So we want to encourage that kind of neighborhood connection. It's one of my favorite things in the neighborhood I'm at in Ridgefield. We have a pack of boys that live in the neighborhood, and they're outside playing basketball and like street hockey, and it's fabulous. So we want to encourage that. Also thinking about minimizing neighborhoods that have to relocate. That's going to be a bit of a challenge for us, given that we're just going from 2 to 3. It's not like we have 24 schools and we're adding a 25th. And then long-term planning, again, as I already mentioned, thinking about where is additional development going to occur. So we want to give some cushion in those areas, knowing that more kids will come, and anticipating just those future needs and having efficiency through how we are staffing. So again, no decisions have been made, but I wanted to give you some examples so we can start to wrap our mind around how we might make these decisions. One way that works really well from a transportation perspective is using existing roadway boundaries. And again, I'm not talking about like a street that goes through a neighborhood. I'm talking about like a highway. So you can see this big purple line that goes from north to south at an angle. That's I-5, right? So that's, we don't have kids on one side and the other that are going to different places and playing. The kids are not crossing that street, we hope. So I-5 could be a potential boundary. And you know that we have Union Ridge on the west, and South Ridge is also west of I-5. So the new Sunset would be the one that is east of I-5, and you can kind of see the numbers there. Another potential boundary could be State Road 502, thinking about dividing from north to south. So that could be a divider between potentially Union and South Ridge, or between Sunset and South Ridge. If you cut up the district in this way, right, you end up with 4 quadrants: northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast. But the challenge here is 62% of our K-4 current population is in that northwest quadrant. And the reason why we're looking at the current K-4 is all those kids are staying where they're at next year, right? Or they're going to the new school, but they're going to still be at elementary school. So they're rolling up to 1st through 5th grade. Kindergarten is always a little bit of a gamble as we think about where those kids are going to be coming from. So you can see the numbers here, 907 in that sort of Union northwest corner, 155 in the southwest where South Ridge is located, 209 in the northeast, which is where Sunset is located, and 192 down in kind of that Mount Vista, is that Donna's area. Donna's quadrant is over there. So again, you can see this would not work as a boundary. So if we're not going to use roadways, well, then what do we use? One other option is to look at neighborhoods. And again, I want to say no decisions have been made. It's on every slide. So when you see it on Facebook and someone says, it says our neighborhood is going to X, you can say, I have it on good authority. No decisions have been made. So this is just an example to show you as we think about developments and neighborhoods, because again, from a transportation and an efficiency standpoint, this is a really helpful way to think about it. We also, of course, want to think about having neighborhoods go to the school that is closest to them, the idea of a neighborhood school. So where possible, we don't want kids to have to ride a bus past one school on their way to another one, right? We can't completely help that, but you can get a sense here about how we might divide it up. And then if you look at the bottom, the totals, doing this by neighborhoods, this is just one potential option. You could see we'd have 481 at Union, 435 at South, 498 at Sunset. Now, that does not include the incoming kindergarten students. So we know that those are all going to go up a bit. And then again, the other component being that Union has the most classrooms on their campus, and also probably the least new development coming in. So something on here probably would have to move one way or another. So just giving you an example again of how we might do it by neighborhood. This is what that example looks like on the map, again with all of our kiddos. The pink, the smallest little section, is the Union Ridge area. The light green, also kind of to the north and the east, would be the new Sunset potential boundary. And then you can see where everything to the south then is continuing to be at South Ridge. And here's a close-up just to kind of see the way that it cuts. So the boundaries start to look pretty crazy. In order to get enough kids out of the Union northwest quadrant into Sunset, you're going pretty far west in order to pull enough kids over. And then it also shows you how far north you have to go to pull enough kids into South Ridge. So again, this is just one example. These are some suggested guiding principles. And I wanted to give some space and time for the board to have some dialogue, I hope, about these. Certainly, we're going to consider all of these, but when it comes down to the tough decisions, often it's a matter of what the priority is. Is the priority that we're promoting neighborhood communities and minimizing distance? Is the priority transportation efficiency? Is the priority the number of students that have to move boundary? Is the priority getting a decision done quickly so people can plan ahead? So these again are just suggestions. And I know everyone will be shocked, but there'll be a survey coming soon to ask community members what their priorities are around these guiding principles. But before that comes out, I wanted to open it up for the board to have some conversation because this is the first time that we are diving into this topic. And so I would love to have some guidance from the board around what you're hoping to see through this process.
Just a few quick call outs. The considerations, principal slides, are those your expertise, Jenny, or is those WASDA recommendations? Like, where do those?
I just did some research and then compiled it.
Secondly, Union Ridge is our highest capacity, but the delta between our current South Ridge and Union Ridge student body's fairly significant for two schools. Like, how did we get there where the smaller occupancy school is the school that has
about 100 kids more crammed into it?
Yeah.
Yes.
How did that happen?
With the last boundary revision that was done.
Okay.
Yeah, so when Sunset and View opened, right, and we pulled fifth graders out, there was, I think, a revision around that time. And I believe you can even go back still to the old slides where it shows the numbers at the time. But what's occurred since then is every year Union Ridge has been decreasing and South Ridge has been increasing because of where the developments have gone in. So it's seems to be getting worse, not better in that regard. So this is a good time for us to redraw and try to be thoughtful. It's always a crystal ball. We can't always exactly know, but we do know that we have a very dense downtown, the Heron development up on the hill, and so we need to be thinking about a lot of these other neighborhoods that, you know, perhaps are closer to Union Ridge than the new Sunset, but we may need to push over into Sunset in order to balance the campuses.
Just a couple more housekeeping for like who's going to be at the table to help you make this decision, and just for ultra clarity, this is a board approval for boundaries.
Yeah. So ultimately, the board is going to make the decision.
Sure. Okay, that's all I got. Oh, sorry, to my question, who on staff, from like the principals to cabinet, supports you in kind of
Yeah.
putting these proposals together?
So I've been working with K-Rural Transportation because they honestly are the experts around all the locations and the streets. So they're helping with that. Obviously, cabinet is staying apprised of this as well. We have been meeting with our 3 soon-to-be elementary principals on all kinds of things, so this will be a point for them as well. But honestly, I'm hoping to get some feedback in the survey around what the priorities are, and get ideas from the community, and then we will come back to you with a recommendation. I would love to have this done in a next couple of months. We will begin staffing process in January. And in fairness to our staff, many of whom live in our community and have children in our schools, I'd really like to be able to let them know where the boundaries are. It may assist some folks in making personal decisions about whether they want to transfer to a different building or stay in their current existing building.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, it is.
And then it's going to get emotional.
Always does.
Yep. What's going to happen when somebody doesn't like where their kids are going to school now and wants to get move?
I'm going to give them your number. We have a in-district transfer process that we utilize already, and it's really based on space availability. So we have students right now that live in the South Ridge that go to Union and vice versa. We don't deal with this as much as many communities because we have only one intermediate, one middle, one high school. So there's really no transferring to be done at that point. But we do make accommodations. When we do an in-district transfer, families are responsible for the transportation. So it doesn't impact like our bus route system and all
Right.
of those kinds of things. But again, the hard part with these is often, just like with cell phones and pouches and attendance changes, there is a lot of emotion that comes out initially. And my ask would be that we give it a shot. We have amazing teachers. We have amazing elementary principals, and we are taking good care of our facilities. And I would, if I had kids or grandkids, I'd send them to any one of our elementaries. I wouldn't bat an eye. So I just encourage people to consider sticking with wherever the boundary is at, and please consider putting your child on the school bus, because that would alleviate a lot of the traffic congestion that causes a lot of challenges for everyone in the community.
Yeah, I think, whatever the boundaries get decided, that we just have a very consistent approach to it, and then follow the rule, right? And I think that's where it's hard, a certain family has a certain situation, and then they get acceptance, and then you just start to snowball out of that, and it's hard to catch up with it once it's, so just, just like with the attendance, having some good guidelines that we can explain to parents, and all parents will definitely help with that. But my main thing is transportation's a big one. We got to be efficient with that, and make sure that you kind of get those buses, because you're right. Like, there's going to be some long bus rides, and that's not good for anything.
Yeah.
So minimizing that as much as possible.
Yeah. I will probably not recommend a hard line on all things, and my cabinet's I'm not gonna look at them right now because they're gonna be like, oh my God, Jenny. But there's always an exception.
Right.
What I will say with our in-district transfer process is we're not obligated to make that decision like by a certain date. And this year, when we had some of these requests, we waited until August 1st, August 15th, first day of school, to make some of those decisions because we were waiting to see, do we have space or not? We have to make decisions about the number of teachers and grade levels that will be at each campus in January and February. So at that point, we're staffing based on those numbers that we have from the boundaries, and there is limited ability to have space because we're going to staff things as tightly as we can, again, because we're being fiscally responsible and wanting to have comparable and equitable services at all 3 campuses next year.
Yep, go ahead.
I just have a couple things. On the graphs, maybe I'm missing it, but are you including the projection for the 5th grade students in those graphs? Because they're also coming back in the.
Well, they're not because they're current 4th graders.
So that's part of it. So they're just holding, and then you're saying the mystery dots are going to be the incoming kindergartners.
Yep.
Okay. And then I wonder if we would be able to also include in that graph like predictions based on the housing developments and the percentage of families with school age elementary kids. Because I think the developments are, we know they're coming, we know the houses are being built, we probably have a pretty good idea of approximately how many kids will be attending, at least a guesstimate. Because, I mean, we know that the range on the outside of that Union Ridge bubble is going to be continuing to grow.
Yes.
I always hate I don't want people to have to, those people that are on that border that have been switched before, and they are always that anxiety of never knowing if they're going to get switched continually. It would be really great if we could figure out ways to keep them together more. I like the idea of keeping communities together. Yeah, thank you for pulling this back up.
Yeah, we will do our best. It's a challenge. Things don't always go in as quickly or as slowly as we might anticipate. As we talked about at the last board meeting, birth rates are down, enrollment's decreasing in part because people are waiting longer to have children, people are having fewer children. So we have sort of historical averages that we can make guesstimates about kids, but I almost would say we should be even more conservative in those estimates. The other thing, the downtown corridor is probably always going to be Union Ridge, right? So we have some established older communities that are probably not going to have to move ever, no matter what happens. My neighborhood is closer to the highway, and it's a neighborhood that has been both and has been bounced. But I will tell you that one of my neighbors was like, well, you should just put us in the new school because then we can say we've been in every boundary. So people aren't always upset about those things, I guess is my point with that story. But I think the other thing to think about is if we get to a point where we're going to build a 4th elementary, it is on the east side of the freeway in the south quadrant. So as we think about development, that's the other crystal ball item that we're kind of trying to play with is at what point might we need a 4th school, and then knowing at that point everybody in that southeast quadrant is going to probably go to that new school. So how do we kind of balance for that too? So we will do our best. I have no doubt we'll get some things wrong. That's just how it works with boundaries and growth. But I think the main thing is trying to think about what do we want ultimately capacity at Union Ridge to look like, and we probably go pretty close to that, knowing that there's not going to be a lot of growth in that smaller geographic boundary. and leave more capacity for growth in the other two places, at Sunset and at South. We do already own property for a fourth elementary in that southeast quadrant, so that's, down the road on the horizon maybe. The other piece was there was, I think, always an intent to finish out Southridge with a further addition. As you know, the building B at Union Ridge is a 2-story facility. The one at South is only a 1-story. So that would be another potential project down the road, depending on how the community wants to address growth.
Is this something we can talk about during the strategic planning meetings?
We have
No.
so much work to do with strategic planning that I would be hard pressed to include this.
In terms of process, are you looking for us to provide input in terms of what are the priorities to consider for decision-making, looking at survey feedback from people, and then coming up with your recommendation based on that? Or will we be looking at various scenarios that would get us to where we need to be?
Yeah, what I would like to see, given the other work that we have going on right now and the timing, is I was hoping to get some feedback from you all this evening around what's most important to you in considering these ideas. And then obviously we'll wait and see what kind of response we get to the survey. And then I will come back to you with either a couple of options for conversation, potentially another round of surveys, but ultimately bringing you probably a recommendation with rationale behind it.
In terms of input from me, in terms of priorities, some of the things that jump out to me are also being efficient around transportation. I love encouraging families to put their kids on buses, and I love the idea that the bus rides won't be ridiculously long. And I also know many, many families don't put their kids on buses, so just being thoughtful and mindful of that. I would say also limiting student movement as much as possible, long-term solutions so that we're not having to redraw people constantly. The multiple siblings and school relationships is very real. And that's a loss for people who do have to move. So just being thoughtful about that as much as possible. And then the other piece that jumps to me as well is really looking at making sure that socioeconomically we're making sure that we have even schools. Well, our funding and our resources from the district going out to each of the schools would match per pupil. I know that PTOs and PTAs have a huge impact in all the fun extra stuff that happens as part of schools' communities. So I just would want to make sure that we're being thoughtful about that as well.
Great, thank you.
And I may have to not provide input on this particularly specifically because your map had my kid moving, so
I know.
I'm just gonna say this is really it's a big deal for families, and so I just recognize that it's a hard thing to be talking about.
Totally, yeah. I do want to just reiterate that there's going to be movement. We're not hiring new teachers for Sunset. It's existing South and Union teachers and paras and secretaries and administrators. And so whether you stay in the same school next year or you go to a different school, chances are the staff's going to be different either way.
And no decisions have been made.
And no
to
decisions
reiterate
have been
that.
made. Yes, yes.
The example map.
Yes, thank you.
For sake of feedback, I'll just add, I think 5 and 6, just safety and efficiency for our kids. I want them on buses less and in classrooms and back home sooner, more than long bus rides. I think everything on this list is worthy and important, but I would stress efficiencies and less time on the road for our kids and more time in the classrooms and more time back home.
Okay.
So, I would like to, number 4, the minimizing the distance to school. The transportation efficiencies definitely, and the consideration of inequities. And also the changes made, number 1, for the long-term solutions, so that we, like you said, so that we don't have to do this in another few years, although we might, because nobody has a crystal ball. And we don't know what's gonna happen in our community. So,
Thank you. I think so. Yeah, yeah.
I was part of the last boundary move, and that was like, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, but then it made sense to me when they kind of explained it, like, we're moving neighborhoods that we know are gonna move again. And that was the rationale for that. Like, they went into Bellwood Heights or whatever, and they went into a neighborhood and said, we're moving to South Ridge. I'm like, they're right by Union Ridge, but they're gonna end up being, that was kind of the mindset. This is so above my pay grade that I'm gonna trust that. Simplistically, I would 3 schools and just radiate out until you get your numbers. That's how I would do it, but I'm just a landscaper, so. This is why you guys get I think
Yes.
KWRL is gonna help a ton. It's their business about making routes, and I think it's been pretty loud and clear that transportation's big, from the cost and from just time and
Yes.
efficiencies, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, any other feedback from the board?
Thank you.
See, that didn't hurt too much. Okay. Kind of wrapping up our evening, I have just some good things before we get into our business portion, but Character Strong, I've talked about just briefly, but Character Strong is our new social emotional curriculum that we're piloting this year, preschool through 12th grade. And it is really called Purposeful People in the preschool through 5th grade realm, Character Strong 6th grade through 12th grade. And everything really revolves around these 3 big ideas of be kind, be strong, and be well. And you can see in the lower left-hand corner, these are the character traits. So at the elementary level, students are learning about these character traits. A different trait is really featured each month. So pretty fun, just kind of seeing all the fun stuff kids are doing. The one on the top, I don't remember which campus, but one of the elementaries, that was a big sign with the character traits. The one on the right is, I know it's South, and it has to do with kindness, and kids are holding up signs about being kind. And then the 2 pictures in the middle, this is one of our preschool classrooms, and they were learning a stoplight strategy. So if someone is playing in a way that you don't like, you can say, stop, please don't do that, I don't like it. And then they have a system for how they can do something different or talk to an adult when they need to. So that you can see, it's just, I remember when my kids were little and the opening presents at the birthday party, everyone wants to be right by the teacher. So they're all kind of like leaning into Michelle there. So cute. Also, lots of real world skills happening at our school. So I had occasion last week, I guess it was, I went up to Sunset and View and visited all of our career tech ed, our visual performing arts classrooms, just checking out all the enrichment activities that our kids get to do as a part of their regular day. And so these 2 pictures of these 2 young ladies, they are in View Ridge art class, and they are hand sewing puppets. And I thought this was genius, honestly, for the teacher to have as a unit, because they're learning about pattern making, which is actually an engineering standard. They're learning about the use of color, which is art standards, and they're learning how to sew, which is just a skill that I believe every human should learn at some point in their life. One that I have had to use my own self in my life. So when teachers, kids are like, when will we ever use this? Trust me, you're going to learn, you're going to sew a button on your coat. So I just was excited. And they were also getting to personalize, of course, what their puppet was going to be. So from a basic pattern and then adding other pieces to it. So just really a fun class to visit. Also, just to update on our career and technical education, really at the middle school, high school level, we have advisory committees. This is a requirement with career technical education programs. Advisory committees are made up of professionals in the industry that students are learning about or training in, who help advise the teacher and our CTE staff on what are the current skills needed for their profession, and sometimes what equipment is important for them to learn about, and those kinds of things. So we had our big first kickoff CCT advisory committee this last week. So just a big thank you to our community volunteers and professionals who serve on those various committees and show up on dark, rainy evenings for us to help advise and make our programs the best they can be for our students. A bright spot as we're kind of wrapping up year-end data from last year. Last year, school year 24-25, we had 472 high school students that together earned 658 industry recognized certificates, which is just incredible. So super proud of them. And then an update on the enrollment this year for CTE. So this is semester 1. At View Ridge, we have about 2/3 of our kids that are in a career technical education course of some type right now. And at the high school, we're just shy of 50% in a career technical education class. So really strong enrollment in these programs, which are, for the most part, student choice to be a part of. So exciting stuff happening in the CTE world. And then, so excited. We have finished pouring all the foundations. The last foundation was poured last week, and they're already framing on top of it. And so, yeah, there's framing going up in 3 of the 4 wings, maybe by today, the 4th too. But you can see that first floor, the kindergarten classrooms, we're on to the second floor, which is intermediate classrooms, the other classroom wing directly behind it to the south. And then they're working on now kind of the office, and you're going to start seeing the gym wall go up soon. So a lot of really cool stuff happening out there. And I thought I would just end with a picture that I took here in Ridgefield on Saturday in the midst of our atmospheric river, learning about weather. But this is out there on the road right in front of our new elementary school, just a beautiful rainbow, which is always, right, a symbol of hope and just a new day, a new dawn. And I just thought, what an appropriate symbol as we're getting ready to launch into our strategic planning work. So I just wanted to share my very amateur photograph. So
Beautiful.
thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Board communication, Jake.
Yeah, just a couple items I've got. Tomorrow afternoon, my community exchange with Counselor Davis. It's at Bunny's from 4 to 5. Come talk about the growth of Ridgefield, boundaries for our school district, where all things intersect. We'd love to have conversations about anything on our agendas that we've been talking about as a community or a district. Between now and our next meeting, looking forward to our strategic planning sessions. I'll be at least 1, maybe 2 of them, and excited for most of our group to attend the WASDA conference later this month. Get some best practices and some learnings about all things strategic plan and perhaps boundaries and other relevant topics to the board. So that's all I got tonight.
Donna.
I don't have anything this evening. I'm still under the weather, but I am here.
Amanda.
Yes, I just wanted to thank everybody who did the survey for the strategic planning, and then that I know I'll be at all 3 of them, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. I think that's going to be really important work that we're all going to do together, and I'm really looking forward to everybody that's committed to showing up and diving in and doing the the empathy interviews, I think, are going to be very powerful for our community to get just that integrity and trust building. It's going to be really powerful. I've been meeting with a few different people and talking about safe routes to schools with Dr. Sultana Makridis. And tomorrow we're just going to do a walking survey kind of on our own. But she's been pointing me to a lot of different resources for the state and nationwide. So hopefully, like, we can, work towards making sure all of our schools, including our newest school, have safe routes to get there, which includes walking, busing, and biking. I've been lucky enough to participate in the new Tater Tot bike bus. It's been so much fun. And if you're interested in joining that, reach out to Angel Bird or myself, and we will connect you with people that can help make that happen. I also have been meeting with Joel Santana, who's the Director of Dining Services, to start talking about ways we can increase our local food production in our school menus. And I have a meeting set up next week to meet with a coordinator for the state that works directly with the local farms. So hopefully we can increase that connection. And I was really excited after meeting with Joel about how much he's really enthusiastic about it. And I felt very empowered that our district can really make choices for the betterment of our kids, and just kind of the overall picture of making our kids the healthiest they can be, kind of, the whole safe routes to schools and all the nutrition things. It's been really exciting to kind of tap into all those different things, and it just feels like our kids are really lucky that we have so many people that care about them and are looking forward to making the school environment even better. That's all.
Amber.
Also, a pretty brief update from me. A reminder that November 13th at 9 a.m. is my next coffee hour at Lava Java. And then in December on the 4th, Brett and I will be at Three Peaks from 6 to 8 p.m. if you want to come and chat with us. Your Character Strong update reminded me, I think I shared this with you, but just a fun anecdote. I had a car full of 6th and 7th grade boys heading to soccer, and there was a whole bragging thing that was happening in the back seat around who was in Character Strong, who had Character Strong as a class. And I have just heard through the grapevine nothing but positive from that age group. So appreciation for those who are rolling that out this year. So far, my sample size of 3 middle school soccer players were in favor of it and felt pretty excited that they got to participate. So also been thinking about food resources for the community, and just appreciation to the Resource Center and the food support they provide for families in our district. And just a reminder that if families need support, particularly coming up this month, that the Resource Center is there, and also to make sure to reach out to Central Services for support with free lunch paperwork, if that might be a need, just to make sure that anyone who isn't sure how to get support, that there is support in the school district at those 2 places.
All right, thank you. Mine's short. I got to participate in the CCTE advisory committee, and I can attest that is strong and thriving and going to explode. It is. It's exciting to see where it is right now. We have visions of where it's going to be, and it's the real deal. It's exciting for opportunity for kids, and so great to be able to participate in that and give feedback from being in the labor kind of trade force. It was great to hear other people's, sit in a room and say, this is what we're looking for. This is where we need kids to be ready to go to work. Yeah, so awesome program. And then I would like to thank all the CWI students that have had the opportunity to email me and the rest of the board members with their concerns or ideas. I think it's a great opportunity to test those skills of reaching out to an elected official and stating your opinions. And now my list was pretty long. I'm still working through it, but I apologize if you were looking for an immediate response. October and November are kind of my travel months, so I haven't been home a bunch, but I will respond. Short, brief, precise responses, but I will let you know that I received it and I read it. So thank you for that. And then again, December 4th, anybody that's wants to get out, come see me and Amber, and we'll talk. All right, thank you. With that, takes us to old business.
Okay, we have just a couple of policies that are on for second read this evening. The first is policy number 2022, electronic resources. This is just part of our taking a peek at everything related to electronics this fall. WASDA updated their policy in March of 2024. Our district last updated in June of 2020. So we are recommending the revised electronic resources and internet safety policy. There is an accompanying procedure that will also go into effect once the policy is updated. Happy to answer any questions.
I move that we approve item 8A as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you. Moving on to 8B is approving new board policy number 2023, digital citizenship and media literacy. This one was also published by WASDA in March of 2024. It's not something that we have previously adopted. In addition to the digital citizenship and media literacy best practices, this policy procedure provides some initial guidelines and tools for teachers and students for the use of artificial intelligence or AI with schoolwork. Upon adoption of the policy by the board, the district would also implement an AI classroom protocol and a student AI code of conduct, and we recommend approval of the policy this evening.
I move that we approve item 8B as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
All right, thank you. Going on to new business. First read of new board policy number 3245, accommodating students with adrenal insufficiency. A serious matter, of course. This is another item that's coming down from the state as something that we need to put in place. It just basically states that districts are required to implement individual health plans or IHPs for students with adrenal insufficiency beginning this school year under new legislation. It is in alignment to the new WASDA board policy number 3425, accommodating students with adrenal insufficiency, with an addition of the explanation of the condition. And I think I just would not editorialize too long, but I thought it was important to include in the policy an explanation of what adrenal insufficiency is, and also just to note that it's incredibly rare among the general population and is typically diagnosed between the ages of 30 and 50. So it's just another piece of legislative requirement that as a district we're spending time now implementing. And I just would assure everyone that we're happy to implement individual health plans for any medical condition which is diagnosed for your children in our schools. Happy to answer any other questions.
And sorry that I don't know the answer to this one, but we have some other policy that covers students with any other kind of health need already in place, and this is just a specific to this particular condition that is coming from the legislation.
Yes, we have
Okay.
actually multiple.
Okay.
For different various health conditions, and it's a matter of our standing procedure
Yes,
that we have a process to do that for any condition a child
Okay.
may have.
thank you.
Okay.
That is an action item?
No.
No.
It's a first read, so we'll bring it back in November for the board to vote on. And then another first read, revised board policy number 6600, transportation. Again, we're just going through our revision and review process. This one has not been updated in our district since January of 2008. WASDA last updated in October of 2024, so this would bring us current with WASDA model policy, with the addition of references to our participation in the K-World Transportation Cooperative, which is managed by Woodland School District. So as you go through and you see the track changes in the draft revised document, you're going to see some references to K-World because that is who manages our transportation for us. Happy to answer any questions. Okay, and then taking us to 9C, first read of revised board policy number 6605, student safety walking to school and riding buses. So, given the conversation we've had the last few meetings about safe routes to school, thought it was important for us to just have a quick peek at this one. This is, again, just things that we're going through to double check all of our safety policies this year. So this one was last updated in April 2017. WASDA updated it in July of 2023. The proposed revisions bring us current with WASDA model policy. Upon adoption by the board, the district would update the accompanying procedure, which includes establishing safe walking and biking routes for Sunset Ridge, the new Sunset Ridge Elementary, View Ridge Middle School, and Ridgefield High School, and reviewing the established routes for Union Ridge. So as we looked into this, we found that there is already an established safe walking routes for Union Ridge Elementary that is on file with our district. There are no routes currently on file for Sunset View and Ridgefield High School. They're not required to be completed for secondary buildings. They are required for elementaries where there are walkers. We do not have a plan currently for Southridge because it is fully a bused campus. We don't have any walkers for that campus. But we would like to just get plans in place for each of our campuses. So we'll bring this one back to you as well in November, and happy to answer any questions about that.
I have a question about that. On the old policy, it had a safety advisory committee. And I'm curious if we have had that in the past, and if not, why are we eliminating it from the new policy? Or what's the justification for removing it, and who would take on that role of creating the routes?
Yeah, so it would be district staff that would be taking care of developing the maps in collaboration likely with some K-World staff, but also with Ridgefield Police Department or potentially the city. And in terms of the advisory committee, it's not been here since I've been here. I don't know at what point, if it ever was. It has been removed from the WASDA model policy. I think there's been change in legislation because you can see it was to comply with a specific WAC and RCW. So updates to the law result in updates to the policies.
All right.
Okay.
I think that's it. Do we have an executive session?
We do
We
have
do,
an executive
okay.
session.
All right.
Hopefully just 15 minutes for the purpose of reviewing performance of employees under RCW 42.30.1101G.
All right, so motion to go into executive session for 15 minutes.
I move that we go into executive session for the stated purpose for 15 minutes, returning at 6:35.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks for coming, Megan. We'll see you next week too. We'll see you every Tuesday for the foreseeable future. You're fine. Nobody's gonna. Danny will keep an eye on everything for us. Oh, yeah. Bye. Have a good night.
right, we are out of executive session. There was no action taken, and I'm adjourning this meeting. Thank you.